The first letter arrived at 12:01 a.m. Not earlier. Not later. Always 1 minute after midnight. I didn't hear it arrive. There was no knock. No footsteps. No sound at all. I only noticed it because the air in my bedroom changed, as if the room itself had taken a quiet breath. The envelope was resting on my desk. It was pale gray, almost colorless, with no stamp and no return address. My name was written on the front in handwriting that felt familiar. Not neat. Not messy. Just mine, the way I used to write years ago before life taught me to rush. I stood there for a long time, staring at it, unsure how long it had been there. The strangest part wasn't the letter. The strangest part was this. I already knew what it was about. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting. No signature. Just one sentence. You dreamed of the ocean again. My heart tightened. I hadn't told anyone about that dream. Not ever. And yet, the letter was right. Every few months, I dreamed of the same ocean. Black water. Endless horizon. No waves. No moon. Just the sound of something vast breathing beneath the surface. I slept poorly that night. At 12:01 a.m. the next night, another letter appeared. This one was heavier. The paper inside was thicker, slightly warm, as if it had just been written. You tried to remember her face this time, it said. You almost did. I sat on the edge of my bed, my pulse loud in my ears. There was a woman in the dream. There always had been. But her face blurred every time I reached for it, like fog pulled tight over memory. I hadn't even admitted that to myself. Yet whoever or whatever was sending these letters knew. By the third night, I stopped pretending this was coincidence. The third envelope contained directions. An address. It wasn't far. Only a 10-minute walk from my apartment, but I had never seen it before. Midnight Post Office. Open from 12 a.m. to 12:07 a.m. 7 minutes. That's all it gave me. The building stood between two closed shops I had passed 1,000 times. But now it was there, tall, narrow, and softly lit from within. No sign. No windows. Just a single brass mail slot in the door. The moment the clock on my phone struck midnight, the door unlocked itself. Inside, the air smelled like paper, ink, and rain. Rows of wooden shelves stretched farther than they should have, bending slightly, as if the space inside refused to obey the outside world. Each shelf was filled with envelopes. Thousands of them. Millions, maybe. Every single one labeled with a name. I stepped forward. The door closed behind me without a sound. A bell rang once. Then a voice spoke. Calm, old, and patient. You're late, it said gently. I turned. Behind the counter stood a man who looked like he had been waiting forever. Gray hair, sleeves rolled up, ink stains on his fingers. You don't remember us, he continued, not unkindly. But you've always come. I swallowed. Come, when? He smiled just a little. When you dream. He gestured toward the shelves. These are letters that never reach waking hands, he said. Dreams you forgot, thoughts you buried, feelings your mind refused to carry across the night. I felt dizzy. And mine? I asked. He reached under the counter and placed a bundle of envelopes in front of me. My name, hundreds of times. Some envelopes were new. Others were yellowed with age. One more thing, he said quietly. Tonight, a letter arrived that doesn't belong here. My chest tightened. What do you mean? He slid a single envelope toward me. It was darker than the others, almost black. This one, he said, lowering his voice, was written from the other side of the dream. The bell rang again. The lights flickered, and the clock above the counter began counting down. 12:07. 6 minutes left. The bell above the post office door rang again. Not loud, not sharp, just enough to be felt, like a thought passing through your mind when you're half asleep. Elias looked up from the counter. No one was there. The door stood open, breathing in the fog from the empty street. Midnight had deepened into something heavier now, not late but elsewhere. The kind of hour that didn't belong to clocks. The letters on the counter had multiplied. Where there had been one envelope before, there were now dozens, stacked neatly, each one addressed in a different handwriting, yet all written with the same quiet certainty. Some were smeared, as if written while crying. Others were precise, disciplined, almost fearful of making a mistake. Elias touched one. The paper was warm, not fresh from a printer warm, body warm. He pulled his hand back instinctively. That was when he noticed the return addresses. They weren't places. They were moments. The night you didn't say goodbye. The dream you forgot at age 7. The version of yourself you never became. Elias swallowed. He had sorted mail for 23 years. He had handled threats, love letters, legal documents, final notices, apologies written too late. But he had never held a letter that knew him. Behind him, the sorting shelves creaked. Slowly, as if something had shifted its weight. Elias turned. A new row of mail slots had appeared along the back wall, wood darker than the rest, carved with symbols that hurt to focus on. Each slot was labeled, but not with names. They were labeled with emotions. Regret, longing, unsent, forgotten, still waiting. A whisper drifted through the room. Not a voice. More like the echo of many voices agreeing on something. Deliver them. Elias stepped back, heart pounding. Deliver where? He asked the empty room. The old clock above the counter clicked. For the first time since midnight, its hands moved. Not forward. Sideways. The bell rang again. This time someone was standing in the doorway. A woman or something close enough to be one, wearing a post office uniform that didn't match any era Elias recognized. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sleepless in the way mirrors are. "You're late," she said softly. I don't remember opening the door," Elias replied. "You never do," she said. "Dreamers rarely remember how they arrive." She stepped inside, and the fog followed her, curling around her shoes like it knew her. Elias noticed something wrong immediately. She cast no shadow. "You're the night clerk now," she continued, moving behind the counter with practiced ease. "Which means you deliver what the waking world refuses to." Elias laughed once, nervously. "This is a dream." She looked at him. "Then why does your chest hurt?" she asked. He froze. She slid a single envelope toward him. No address, no stamp, only his name, in his mother's handwriting. "She wrote that the night before she died," the woman said gently. "She never mailed it. You never dreamed it. So it came here." Elias stared at the envelope. His hands shook as he picked it up. "I don't want to read it," he whispered. "You don't have to," she replied. "You only have to deliver it." "To who?" "To the version of you that's still waiting." The lights flickered. Outside, the street had changed. Where there had been empty pavement, there were now doorways, hundreds of them, floating in the dark like windows cut into nothingness. Behind each door pulsed a soft glow. "Every door leads to a sleeping mind," the woman said. "Every letter belongs to one." Elias felt something tightening in his chest. "If I don't deliver them?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Then the dreams rot," she said. "And when dreams rot, they leak into the waking world." The bell rang again. Another letter appeared on the counter. Then another, and another. The post office filled with the sound of paper sliding, stacking, whispering. Elias realized the truth too late. This place didn't exist to serve dreams. It existed because dreams refused to stay silent. And somewhere, far away, someone was beginning to wake up. By the third night, the bell rang before midnight. That had never happened before. Elias was awake, sitting at the sorting desk, hands folded, breath steady. But his heart stopped when the sound echoed through the post office. The clock above the wall read 11:47 p.m. The rules were breaking. A letter slid through the slot on its own. No envelope, no stamp, just a single sheet of paper, folded neatly in thirds. The ink was still wet. Elias didn't touch it at first. The walls of the post office felt closer now, as if the room itself were listening. The lamps flickered, dimming to a soft amber glow, and the rows of mailboxes rattled, one by one, like teeth chattering in the cold. He finally unfolded the paper. The handwriting was his. Not similar, not familiar, identical. Every curve, every pressure mark, even the small hesitation before certain letters, the same flaw he'd never been able to correct. The message read, "You are not supposed to remember this place." Elias swallowed. The second line appeared as he watched, the ink bleeding into existence like a wound reopening. "If you keep reading, you will not wake up the same." His fingers trembled. A memory stirred, something buried deep beneath years of ordinary days. A dream he used to have as a child. A hallway with no doors. A bell ringing somewhere far away. He remembered waking up crying, his mother holding him, whispering, "It was just a dream." But it wasn't. The third line wrote itself. "You worked here before." The lamps went out. Darkness swallowed the room, thick and heavy, pressing against his chest. Elias felt the floor tilt, as if the building itself were shifting locations. Then, light returned. The post office had changed. The ceiling was higher, the walls longer. Hundreds of new mailboxes lined the space, stretching far beyond where the back wall used to be. And every box now had a name. Not names of strangers, names of people he knew. His neighbor, his old schoolteacher, a woman he once loved and never spoke to again. And one at the far end, Elias Morrow, his own box. It was overflowing. Letters spilled onto the floor, stacked in thick bundles tied with black thread. Each envelope was marked with a date, some from the past, some from the future. One date stopped his breath. Tomorrow. Footsteps echoed behind him. "Don't open those." Elias turned sharply. The woman from the counter stood there, no longer calm, no longer gentle. Her eyes were tired now, ancient. Her uniform was darker, ink-stained, sleeves rolled up like she'd been working without rest. "You promised you'd stop," she said quietly. "I don't remember promising anything," Elias replied. She nodded. "That's how it works." She walked past him and picked up one of the fallen letters. The seal shimmered faintly, reacting to her touch. "Every time you fall asleep," she said, "your mind writes letters. Most people forget them when they wake. But some leave too much behind." "Why me?" Elias asked. She hesitated. "Because you read the wrong letter once." She led him deeper into the post office, past sections he'd never seen before. The air grew colder. The letters here were heavier, thicker, bound in wax instead of paper. "This is the undelivered wing," she said. "Dreams that were never meant to be remembered." At the end of the hall stood a single desk. On it lay an open ledger. Inside were names, and beside each name an outcome. Sleepwalker, insomniac, lost, vanished, dead. Elias found his name near the bottom. Beside it, written in red ink that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, was a blank space. "No ending yet," he whispered. The woman looked at him sadly. That depends on what you deliver tonight. A bell rang again, louder than before. A new letter slid across the desk. The return address made Elias' blood run cold. From you, after the last dream. The woman stepped back. This one, she said, changes everything. Elias reached for the letter, and the moment his fingers touched the seal, the post office began to shake. Somewhere far above, a door creaked open, and something started to descend. The bell above the counter rang one last time. Not loud, not sharp, just a soft, tired chime, like it had been waiting centuries to make that sound again. I stood alone in the post office now. The shelves that once held thousands of letters were thinning. Some envelopes faded into mist. Others sealed themselves gently, as if finished with their purpose. The clocks on the wall slowed until their ticking became silence. Outside the windows, the dream city dimmed. Night was ending, but one letter remained. It sat on the counter, closer than all the others had ever been. No address, no stamp, just my handwriting on the front. I hadn't noticed it before. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The paper was warm, alive. I didn't remember writing it, but somehow I knew exactly when I had. Years ago, on a night when I had stayed awake too long, staring at the ceiling, holding words inside my chest because there was no one left to give them to. The letter opened itself, and I read. It wasn't a message to someone else. It was a message to me, to the version of myself who would eventually arrive here. It spoke of things I had forgotten I once loved. Dreams I had buried because they didn't make sense to the world. Promises I made to myself when I believed time was endless. The words didn't accuse. They forgave. As I read, the post office responded. The walls breathed. The lights softened. The entire building leaned inward, listening. This was why the place existed. Not to store dreams, but to return them. The caretaker appeared beside me again. Older now, fainter. This is the last letter you'll ever receive here, he said quietly. Not because the post office is ending, because your waiting is. I looked up. What happens now? He smiled in that sad, knowing way only dreams can. You wake up carrying what you forgot. The final clock struck. Not midnight this time, but morning. The windows brightened with a pale, unreal dawn. The door behind me opened on its own. Cold air rushed in, not dream air, but real air. Before stepping out, I turned back. The caretaker was already fading. So, I asked, does everyone come here? He nodded. Every night. But most don't remember. Then he paused. And sometimes, he added, a letter follows them back. I stepped through the door. The post office vanished. I woke in my bed, heart steady, room quiet, ceiling exactly where it had always been. For a moment, I thought it had all been nothing, just another dream. Then I noticed something on my nightstand. An envelope, blank, warm, waiting. I didn't open it right away. Some letters aren't meant to be read immediately. Some are meant to be lived. And somewhere, between sleep and waking, the midnight post office rang its bell again, ready for the next forgotten dream.